A few short years ago, unless you were a member of the legal fraternity, you might be forgiven if you said you didn't know the name Ambiga Sreenevasan. But in the last few years, that name has become synonymous with the new voice of the Malaysian people. A voice that demands free and fair elections. A voice that demands to be heard, and a voice that cannot be silenced. And Ambiga has also had a remarkable record of accomplishments in the Malaysian bar, holding the post of president from 2007 to 2009. And Ambiga is certainly no stranger to organizing and getting Malaysians together for causes of national interest and importance. 6 months after becoming the president of the Malaysian Bar, Ambiga organized the March for Justice in Putrajaya, which called for judicial reforms. In 2011, Ambiga chaired the Bersih 2.0 rally, which drew a crowd reported to be in excess of 20,000 Malaysians. When asked the reason for Bersih 2.0, Ambiga said it was about unhappiness. Unhappiness about the Sarawak elections, unhappiness about corruption, and unhappiness about the lack of independence in our national institutions. But I think more than that, Bersih 2.0 dispelled the myth that Malaysians of different ethnic and religious backgrounds could not work together, and that the middle class would never come out of their comfort zone and support civil society demonstrations. Well, Ambiga, my first question to you would be, we have just witnessed a very, very successful rally in Bersih 3.0, which drew reportedly over 250,000 Malaysians to come out in support of the cause. What, in your opinion, motivated so many Malaysians to rally at Dataran Merdeka and elsewhere in the country?
Well, you used the word, or I used the word unhappiness, and I think there is still an underlying unhappiness. Basically, I think people were not happy with the responses of the government to the issue of electoral reform. Of course, the PSC was set up after Bersih 2, but I think people felt shortchanged because there was no commitment that the recommendations of the PSC, which covered the Bersih demands, would be implemented before the 13th general elections. So in a sense, I think people felt cheated. The process was good. The setting up of the PSC was excellent. In fact, it's historic because it's never happened before. However, that final step the government failed to take, which is to promise or commit to reform, I think was what sparked the interest in Bersih 3.
Now, this is something which is not in the list of questions, Ambiga. Bersih 3.0, unlike in other rallies, saw a very large number of the middle class coming out in support. In fact, a friend of mine who worked in a city club said that at the last Bersih, the city club was empty, and at Bersih 3.0, it was full of yellow-shirted supporters. What do you think made the middle class finally decide, all right, I'm done with apathy, I'm going out in support and to have my voice heard?
Well, Patrick, there was already, I think, in Bersih 2, there was already a number of middle class participants. And I think that perhaps encouraged more people to join in. But here's the thing, I actually think, and this is what the authorities must pay attention to. The middle class and the middle ground has shifted. It has shifted because they are not intellectually satisfied with the responses that they're getting. They're not fooled by the setting up of this committee and that committee. They want answers, and I think that that day they were just expressing their frustration. You know what was interesting, apart from the City Club situation that you mentioned, someone said, actually this time you speak to a person, they either went to Bersih or they know someone who went to Bersih, and that's how widespread it was. So my own view is that the dissatisfaction is in the responses of the government. They are not appealing to the hearts and minds of the people. And that's what I think has moved the middle class. And when you move the middle class, let me tell you, it's a big problem for the authorities, because it's very hard to move the middle class. As you say, they're happy to sit at home. So that's what I think drove them. They are not satisfied with the responses that they're getting.
Now let's look at some of the events that happened on the day of Bersih 3.0. On that day, the police fired tear gas and water cannons at the people, and it happened after you supposedly announced that Bersih 3.0 had achieved its objectives and you had actually asked the people to disperse, right? Now, the first question is, what prompted you to end the demonstration or the rally at 3 p.m. although the objective was to sit at Dataran Merdeka until 4?
Yes.
Why did you decide to end it early?
Okay, there are a few reasons. If you looked at the, which is why I dispute the government's numbers of 20 over 1,000 today, from where I was, I could see people jam-packed on Tun Perak, on Tuanku Abdul Rahman, and behind me. It was very difficult to sit, let me tell you. I was also concerned for people who had been there for a long time, because actually people were gathering from about 10 in the morning, if not earlier. People had been standing in the sun for a long time. I could see older people there. I was concerned for their health, for their well-being, because it was so jam-packed. And I thought we had achieved our purpose. I was supposed to give a speech, which I did. We were supposed to have some sing-song sessions and so on, which didn't happen because the person concerned couldn't get to the stage. So in a sense, the program actually had more or less ended. So in my judgment, and certainly I consulted with the SC members who were there, in my judgment, we had achieved what we came there to achieve. And it also, for me, it would take time to disperse that crowd. It would take up to 4 o'clock to disperse that crowd. So that's why we wanted to do it in stages. We wanted people to start moving away. And that's the reason why we made that call.
Yeah, but there are also certain quarters in the authorities that say that for you to have organized such a big rally, and then the question is, how could you have hoped to disperse such a large crowd by you only being in one spot?
Yes.
Which they seem to allege that it was never part of the plan to disperse the people anyway.
Oh, no.
Because it was so widespread. Did Bersih have other pockets of people, of leaders that would know what is in your mind?
Well, you see, that I think my decision, the decision I made with the steering committee, was not part of the plan. All right? It was just basically looking at the situation and making the decision. And what we were planning to do was actually to turn right into, after making the announcement at Tun Perak, the message was trickling down. And I'll be the first person to say that perhaps there were shortcomings in our messaging to the people. But the message was filtering down through the unit Amal and so on. We were going to turn right into Tuanku Abdul Rahman, move to the middle. They just wanted to hear us say a few words, and then we were going to disperse there. Then we were going to move to the other area and disperse. So we were going to actually disperse in stages.
I see.
So that was that's why it would have taken time. It would have taken up to 4 o'clock to do that. But we had every intention for people to disperse. People were ready to go as well.
Of course, since Bersih 3.0, there have been a myriad of conspiracy theories about this, that, and the other. One of which is that many people claim it was the opposition leaders who hijacked the Bersih rally by urging people to barge into the barricaded areas. Another thing is 3 former IGPs and a former Prime Minister have said that there were communist or Marxist elements in the Bersih rally, and that it was actually an attempted coup d'etat to overthrow the government. And on the other hand, though, many Bersih supporters view April 28th as the day that they finally saw how far the government was prepared to go to clash with its citizens. What are your views on those points?
I certainly agree with the last point of view. And look, there will always be these theories. They said that for Bersih 2, they said we were, actually I can't even remember whether we were pro-Jew or supported by the Jews, or whether we were Christians. There was all sorts of theories flying around. But you know what? This shows the utter disconnect of the people in authority with the people on the ground. You just need to go and speak to those people who came. Please speak to all of those people who came. Ask them why they were there. It's very, very clear to me. And I think these theories, I mean, I really don't know which era they're living in, when they talk about Marxism and all this. I think they don't realize we are in the era of the internet and communications, and I'm sorry, these theories will not work. And as I say, they can say what they want, but 250,000 people know the truth. And not just 250,000 people, it'll be their families, their friends, and in fact, if you ask me, it'll be practically the whole of Malaysia. It'll be only this small group who's sitting there saying Marxism and communism. But as I say, well, the proof is in the pudding. Go and ask the people. Go and ask them why they came. To respond to the issue of the hijacking by the opposition, let me say this. It is truly an insult to 250,000 people to say that anyone hijacked their cause for free and fair elections. No one can hijack their cause. No, and in fact, as I've always said, even the Bersih leaders are really irrelevant because at the end of the day, it was the people who were there for a common purpose. People saying X hijacked it or Y hijacked it are distracting. They are distracting attention away from the key agenda of Bersih 3 and of the people. The key agenda of the people, which is for free and fair elections.
Ambiga, now that the dust of Bersih 3.0 has sort of settled down, do you think the government is listening enough to the demands by the Bersih 2.0 committee?
Not enough. I'll tell you why. There's some things that they have done, which is they withdrew that amendment, that controversial amendment to the Election Offences Act, which is a good thing. That's in a way listening, I suppose. They seem to be making noises about international observers. But there really needs to be more than that. For example, one of the recommendations of the PSE was that we have free access to media over the elections, they say, over the elections. Now, if the government is truly committed to that, do it now.
But I read recently that the EC actually said, yeah, they are for free access to the media, didn't they?
Yes, but the response was, this is my point, was nothing, okay? Which is why I'm saying there has to be political will for change. We can see right through what's happening now that there's no political will to actually make the difference in relation to the reforms. So the ministers and Deputy Prime Minister are coming out and saying we are committed, we've done it. It doesn't work. People can see it, which is why I've always said, let the people judge. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to what I'm saying. Judge it for yourself. And I think that they did. When they came out on the 28th of April, they had judged it for themselves. With regard to the issue of whether the responses of the government to Bersih 3 is good and to the demands of Bersih 3 are good, one other issue I would speak about is the demonization of Bersih 3. A responsible government will not respond in this way to what has happened in Bersih 3. And that is really not going down very well at all with the people. Because what they're doing is they're ignoring, to a large extent, the police violence. We've been asking questions about who these policemen were, who didn't have numbers, etc., who were beating up on people. No response to that. Instead of which they set up a panel where the chief is someone who has already decided that it's an attempt to overthrow the government. So their responses to Bersih 3 don't engender confidence that this government is taking the issue of electoral reform seriously. Because what they should be doing is they should be being truthful to the people. They should show integrity now. They should say that they will not tolerate any police officer who is violent to any of the supporters. That's what they should be doing. They should be coming clean. But look at the way the mainstream media is demonizing Bersih. They're showing half the picture or 1/10 of the picture. So what do you expect people to, how do you expect people to react? How do you expect people to trust when this is what you are doing? I didn't answer your question on the overthrowing of the government. I think I should. Look, you've got to break it down. What is it we're asking for? We're asking for free and fair elections. That's not bringing a government down. And we want to, if we are going to change any MPs in Parliament, we want to do it through the ballot box. We want to. This is what we're telling you. We want to do it through the ballot box, but we want clean and fair elections. We don't want to do it any other way. So how does that translate to overthrowing the government?
As a Malaysian citizen, I want to hear the answer directly from someone like Ambiga, because the authorities' stand has always been, if there were no free and fair elections in Malaysia, how did the opposition win 5 states in the last general elections?
My answer is they won it despite despite the flawed electoral process.
There you go, you heard it from
And I'll tell you, yeah, that's right. And I'll say this, which is why we are pushing now for 100% voter turnout. Of course, we won't get 100%. Because to me, a big voter turnout can mitigate some of these, discrepancies and fraudulent practices. So that's something that's very important. Yeah.
Right. Now, after saying that, because you say the government is merely paying lip service to all these demands that are being made. So, what would happen if they do not submit to the 8 demands made by Bersih before the next general election? Would you urge then Bersih supporters to boycott the elections?
I would never urge them to boycott. We must never boycott the elections. In fact, we are doing the opposite. We're saying everybody come out and exercise your right to vote. And we're also saying, and this is where PY will explain it further, we're also saying become observers yourself, all right? Whether they bring in international observers or not, educate yourself about the process. You become the eyes and ears of the people, the people themselves. You become your own observers. Appreciate what's happening in the polling stations. Appreciate what you should be doing, what you should look out for, which is why we're encouraging this, enrollment in the Pachaba training. Yeah.
There you have it. Our talk with the woman herself, Ambiga Sreenevasan. Thank you.